Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the STEAM train. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day so far, and it's good to see you guys again. I'm Mr. Dorian with New Minds if you've never seen these before, and feel free to check out all of our previous lessons on newminds.tv. It's all up there. We have hundreds of videos at this point, ready for you to watch, and hundreds of lessons that you might find awesome or may just be inspired by. Now let's talk about water. It's delicious. Everybody needs it, and our world is mostly made out of it. We're mostly made out of it. But have you ever decided to take a closer look at water and what it does when you're not looking? Now, if I look closer at water right now, I just see the bottom of the cup. I'm not actually going to see very much besides the water in the cup. But the thing is that this water has a secret life of its own, and also it's made out of really tall things called atoms. And atoms are what make up everything. Everything is an atom. It's made out of one of the essential elements, and water is no exception. I actually have a really big view of what this would look like. So you've probably heard water before called H2O, and you're probably like, what does that mean? That's actually the chemical equation, or just how scientists write down what it is. So water is 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. And they always stick together like a little Mickey Mouse. But this bond is so strong, it doesn't just stick together like a Mickey Mouse. It's going to stay stuck together no matter what happens to the water. Now, when water goes on its secret adventures, it doesn't just stay in your cup. If you take a cup of water and you put it outside all day, you're probably going to come back, there's going to be less water there, especially if it's a hot day outside. Why does this happen? It's because the water goes through something called the water cycle. A cycle is anything where it will repeat and happen over and over again, and water keeps doing the same things and coming back to where it starts. So right now my water's in a cup and it's having a great day. He's just sitting here. I'm drinking him. He's pretty good. But water can do something called evaporating. What's going to happen is it's going to get really, really hot. Right now, water is a liquid. It moves around and it takes the shape of its container. This water is cup-shaped. No matter what I do, it's going to be cup-shaped. If I put it in a box, it's going to be box-shaped. If I put it on the floor, it's going to be puddle-shaped because it's not going to have anything to hold it. But it can change states to a gas. If you add a bunch of heat to it and you make it really, really hot, like sitting in the sun outside, or boiling it to make hot chocolate, you're really going to realize that steam comes off. And this steam is actually water leaving whatever it's in and heading up into the sky to evaporate. It's going to evaporate and go on a really long journey. All the way up, until it either hits something or goes into the atmosphere. If it hits something, like if it's inside of a container, it will get stuck on the top, it'll make a cloud on the top. If you've ever seen the cloud in a jar experiment, it's really awesome to see. I would demonstrate it for you guys today, but we don't have any hairspray in the house, so I can't show you guys, but cloud in the jar experiment is something really awesome to look up. So the steam is going to go on a journey. It's not going to want to stay in the cup. It's going to heat up. It's going to start to vibrate. When things get hotter, they move faster. So these atoms, they were just moving around like a liquid. Now they're a gas. They vibrate at a very high speed. You can't see it, of course, because they're very, 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 very tiny. But once they evaporate, they turn into a gas, and this gas starts to leave. Until it gets to a certain point. Now, it turned into a gas because it was hot. And the higher up in the air you get, the colder it actually gets. That's why when you see mountains, you see that there's snow on top. It's because it gets colder the higher you get into the atmosphere. When it gets to a certain temperature, around 30 degrees, 32 degrees, the water temperature freezes at. The temperature water freezes at, my bad. It's going to start to condense. All that means is it's going to get smushed together, turn into a weird solid form or a weird kind of pressed together gas. You've actually seen this before. It's a cloud. Every cloud is made out of evaporated water vapor. They're going to go up. They're going to form clouds. and then they start the next part of their journey. They might stay a cloud for a really long time. They're blown around by the wind and the air. They're going to keep moving across, and there's all sorts of different types of clouds that are formed in different ways. But this doesn't stay a cloud forever. What happens is it condenses so much that it becomes too heavy. If you've ever had a towel and it's pretty light, and then you soak it in water by accident, or you use it to dry something, and then all of a sudden it's really heavy, and you're like, where did all this heaviness come from? That's almost what a cloud is like. And at a certain point, it can't hold it anymore. And this cloud decides it's time to rain. The scientific word for rain is precipitation. So this same molecule has slowed down because it cooled in the air, and then it's going to start to fall and precipitate. This can happen in rain, snow, or hail. These three all can happen from a cloud. Once this cloud starts to precipitate, where does it go? It usually will end up on a high point or somewhere flat, and water, being a liquid, will go downhill. So it's going to go down the hill, maybe goes into a drain, maybe goes into a mountain valley, but all of it's going to end up in the lowest points. That's why water level around the world is called 0 feet, because water goes to the lowest point. A river, a lake, anything like that will be at water level, and water is going to find its way back there one way or another. It's really determined, and it has to get back to where it started. So now all of this water is in a lake again. It's back to being water. And that's one path of the water cycle. The cool thing about this is it went through a state change. It changed from a liquid to a gas, and it changed back from a gas to a liquid. State changes are super cool because they usually will not change the atoms, because the atoms are so strongly put together, they won't change. The cool thing about this is that water evaporates at different temperatures than everything else does. This is a really smart way that people use to clean water. Because sometimes you go in the ocean, you hear that it's salt water. And you're like, ew, salt water, I can't drink that. But you need clean water to drink. What people actually do is they evaporate the water. Because the water will turn into water vapor and then condense, but the salt won't. The salt just stays in the bottom. The salt's not a liquid. There's no salt cycle. So it just stays salt in your cup. Then what happens is it evaporates, and you can get it on a cloth. It'll get stuck on it like an artificial cloud, and it will drain into a cup. And then you have the water again, but you've removed the salt. Another cool thing is that water has a third state, and you've seen it before. It is ice. Ice is pretty cool because it's a solid. It has its own shape. It doesn't need a container. And it's going to stay the shape however it freezes. Freezing is changing from a liquid to a solid. Anything can freeze at a low enough temperature. Water just has a really easy freezing temperature. It's really accessible, and that's how Celsius is measured, is how water freezes. 100 degrees Celsius is when water boils and turns into a gas. 0 degrees Celsius is when water freezes. So this is eventually going to turn into water because it's not cold enough in here to keep it frozen. It's actually dripping on my hand. So eventually this is going to turn back into this. If I put this in my freezer, it would turn back into this. State changes can happen at any time, and it's really cool to see. I don't have a normal challenge like I would today, but today's challenge is either watch a cloud in a jar experiment, think about the rain next time you see it, and maybe have a cup evaporate, or your third challenge is think about something that's not water that you know goes through a state change. There's more than you would think, but think of something that turns from a liquid to a gas, or a gas to a solid, or a solid to a liquid. Anything that can happen that has a state change, I want you to think about it and find one. I'm sure there's one that you know about. One really common one is chocolate melting. Chocolate melts really easily, especially if you just hold it in your hand. The heat of your hand is warm enough to just turn a solid chocolate to a liquid one. Another hint is I'm going to think about cooking and let things change states there. But that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you guys are all well. This is another Real Inspired Learning by New Minds. Keep practicing your passions until it becomes your talent. Maybe you just love water like I do. Thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful